Welcome to a very special mid-season episode of Two Who's Review. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
and today we are going to be stepping aside from the critique chairs that we've been sitting in all podcast, and we're going to be putting ourselves under that same scrutiny. We are going to pretend that we have been given the keys to the TARDIS and assigned the showrunner position collectively. And we're going to plan out a whole season of Doctor Who, how we would do it, what stories we would write, what characters we would introduce, what we would do. And we're tentatively calling this Two Who's Produce.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
We've shared maybe a couple of ideas privately before doing this podcast, but not much else beyond that. So it'll be interesting. There will probably be plenty to discuss.
Absolutely.
And we'll go through all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Something we should also point out is that we are ideally uploading this on the 23rd of November, 2022, coinciding with the anniversary. So happy 59th birthday, Doctor Who. What a...
Yay.
What a fitting way to celebrate this milestone. In exactly a year, we'll be watching David Tennant on our screens again, but in a year prior to that, we're planning stuff that could happen years after that fact.
Yeah.
So I want to set some ground rules here. I'm going to assume that we're picking up after Russell T Davies hangs up the towel the second time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm going to assume, therefore, that we're writing for either the 16th or 17th Doctor.
I didn't have anyone in mind. I just, in the notes that I've written, I just kept referring to the Doctor as some mysterious they, we don't know who it'll be, so...
Yeah.
Some vague figure in the future.
Yeah, so just we're not writing what's coming chronologically after this point from now. We're not picking up where Power of the Doctor left off. We're sort of...
Yeah.
We're not beholden to any current cliffhangers or anything like that. We're just sort of doing our own thing, assuming that Russell T Davies wraps up his era more satisfyingly than the last couple of showrunners did. With that in mind, should we start with some broad ideas before we get into individual episode stuff?
Sure. So...
Why don't you bring up the idea that you
go
brought up to me a couple weeks ago? Because I think it's the one that's going to define a lot of this first season.
Is this the TARDIS-less business?
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, that was the big thing that I wanted to do. I want to see a whole season without the TARDIS. Now, before I get into more sort of details in this, I just want to bring up a couple of things. So that was the original idea that I had, and I kind of just sort of went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came up with this other really wacky idea, but then, after writing a bit of it, I'd started planning, the episodes, but after I'd started doing that, I just thought, now, Nick, maybe it would be best to go back and just retread some lore, just make sure you're not doing anything that's already been done before. and of course I was, and of course it's stuff that's probably quite obvious, because my other idea was to have the Doctor meet a new companion, and that companion will be the Master in Disguise. Now, we've already seen this.
We have, indeed.
Very famously. Granted, my idea for it might be a little bit different because it's a whole season's worth, but it's still basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that the Master would what is it, what have I got here? Kidnap, capture the Doctor's TARDIS, and try and go to the time lock that the Time Lords are in on Gallifrey, and break that, and basically to destroy the Time Lords once and for all, because the Master reveals that they individually started the Time War as revenge against the Time Lords because they're awful, corrupt people. And the thing for me that I found sort of most interesting about this idea was sort of the moral conundrums that come about it, because it's the Master knows the Time Lords are corrupt, the Doctor knows the Time Lords are corrupt, so it almost well, no, not almost, but like in the Master's mind, there's a justification for doing this. But then the Doctor could point out, like, oh, but you realize if you do this, you're just as bad as them. Why should you or any of them have a right to, control the fates of millions of people and whatnot? So that was a basic idea. I mean, I may go into that idea in a bit more detail, but that was it broadly. But I abandoned that, and so went with a slightly different idea. The same setup.
So the Master is still a companion?
No. No Master as a companion, but no TARDIS. That's gone.
That's cool.
That's been destroyed.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically the Doctor having to use their own kind of ingenuity to sort of travel across space to get back to their companions. And there's some really, really wacky ideas, but I'll get into that into more detail.
Okay.
Yeah, but oddly enough, similar thematic conclusion to the original idea I had, because it's about, what does it mean to be a Time Lord? Do Time Lords have a right to kind of decide the fate of people, and what cost does that have on the Doctor? Which is something that's been done, I think, in various ways in Doctor Who before. So
yeah. It's a nice thematic thing to explore. I was going to bring up, if you were going to go ahead with the Master subplot, I think it's established in Sound of Drums, maybe, that the Time Lords resurrected the Master to be a combatant in the Time War. So the Master being the one that instigated it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I'd wondered, because I'm like I said again, Nick, let's just go back and just see if there's anything I missed. And even then, I knew, because again, it's been a long time since I've watched the revival era consistently.
Yeah.
So I knew, what if I bring something up and Cuff says, well, that's where you're wrong. Anyway. And I mean, if so, fair enough. But
yeah. So that's your main idea that you raised to me a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, TARDIS-less season.
TARDIS-less season. At the same time, I raised an idea that I quite like. And I'll pitch it now as well. I would like the Doctor's companions this season to be a brother, sister, or two sibling team who are both the children of a previous companion. So a sort of a legacy sort of companion kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
And sort of this way we can explore the effect that because their parent would have told them stories about the Doctor, and it would have formed an impression of the Doctor in their heads. So to then actually have them travel with the Doctor, we could see how that mental image stacks up, how it compares, how they react to what they've built up, maybe not being quite what they expected. We could have one of them be all in and like, oh hell yeah, like, this is great. It's exactly how I thought it would be. And the other one sees a bit more of the, well, actually, our parents didn't tell us about all this kind of stuff. This is a little bit like iffy. Like we can like the morally grey side of the Doctor, where we can have one companion sort of latch onto that a bit more than the other one. And I think that allows for a good dynamic as well. I'm not sure
absolutely.
If a third companion would. I think that would get a bit messy. But I think having just those two and having there be the established dynamic between them like that, it would be really helpful for, telling. Well, not only telling unique stories, but also really exploring, the stuff that could divide them and the difference of opinion they could all have on different things based on the stories that they've been told.
Sure.
I was going to ask you, what companion does this make sense for them to be the children of?
Good question. Maybe it would be interesting if it was someone maybe like Jo Grant, because we've looked at a couple of Third Doctor stories, and I think Jo Grant, part of her personality, she'd be the sort of person to maybe sort of overplay some of the Doctor's more positive qualities or more sort of personable qualities, I guess.
Yeah.
But downplay some of the darker sides to the Doctor.
Yeah.
Both on sort of the micro scale, because as sure I've pointed out, John Pertwee's Doctor could be a bit of a when he wasn't being, crazy fun uncle, he could be a bit of a grouch,
Yeah.
particularly to the people around him. So there's that, but also on the bigger scale of, as I said, the cost of being the Doctor and the really dark decisions that the Doctor sometimes has to make.
Hmm.
So I think she is the first person who comes to mind with that sort of thing.
Well, that's actually
because,
not a terrible idea, because we know from the
mm,
extended media that Jo has had children and grandchildren.
mm,
From the Sarah Jane Adventures, the episode she was in of that one, she talks
mm,
about her family, and then when the 11th Doctor shows up, he talks about her family as well, and how he's sort of been keeping tabs on all of his
mm,
previous companions without their knowledge. And he
mm,
mentions her children and her grandchildren, and how,
mm,
So
mm.
it is established that Jo has children, so, it wouldn't be the biggest leap to involve them.
Yeah, sure.
I'm
And I
happy
think even
enough
just
to just lock that in if you would like.
yeah, sure, because, well, I mean, again, she's the first one that comes to mind, but I'm not sure if it would work as well with other characters, because again, even with her personality, I think she's a very sort of, I don't know if I call her like super agreeable, but she likes to get along with other people. She admires who the Doctor is, whereas Sarah Jane, I feel, is a bit more kind of worldly, I guess,
Yeah.
especially when you put it in context with the Sarah Jane Adventures. I think she has a bit more of an sort of a older, more leveled view of who the Doctor is and what it takes to be a person like the Doctor. So I
Yeah.
think if there was going to be like certainly a classic companion who's going to um feel that way about the Doctor, I think it would probably be um Jo. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I'm,
yeah, I
I'm
guess we can lock that in.
on board with that. Do you want to name our brother sister team real quick? Let's give our companions some names. Let's just.
Sure.
The first thing that came to mind was Richard, but that doesn't make any sense, because that would be Richard Grant, and Richard E. Grant is an actor who is in Doctor Who, actually. So
that would be funny.
Hmm. This is where we're going to get the most stumped. This is the trivial details like this.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be thinking about character names for a solid half hour, and then we'll bash through every episode of the season in 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, even with my stuff, I think I've named one other character with mine, and I've specifically mentioned that old and new companions show up in my season, which I haven't even named yet.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, that's a whole other thing. But we'll deal with that.
Sure.
Maybe I don't know why, but Jennifer's sticking in my mind. I don't know why.
Jennifer Grant, yeah, that works.
Sure.
Jennifer Grant, and I was thinking Zachary.
Zachary, sure. Yeah, that works.
Jennifer and Zachary, or Jen and Zach.
Yeah.
That's nice.
No, that works. Cool.
Also, I mean, this might be a bit contentious, but do we have anyone in mind to play our Doctor?
I was wondering whether you were going to ask about that.
My thinking is, I think it would be neat, or I think it would be fun at the very least, to cast a woman and have it be done right this time.
I was thinking about this question for a while because the one name, okay, so I think I read like a list of all possible future Doctors. I think this might have been not long after Jodie had been announced, or maybe a bit later on, but either way, possible future Doctors. One of them was Phoebe Waller-Bridges. I hope I'm getting that name right. The creator and star of
Fleabag.
Of Fleabag. Yeah. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yeah, I feel like she's got the quirkiness, but she's also, and again, I'm mainly sort of basing this off her performance in Fleabag, but she's got a sarcasm, a wryness, and an almost cantankerous quality to the Doctor. And there's just something about that dynamic that I want to see again. You know,
I can see that, yeah. And if we're gonna
Yeah,
cast, if we're gonna cast a woman as well, I'd like her to have a different personality than Jodie, just to
yeah,
differentiate the two.
absolutely. And I think
Yeah, because I would hate
Phoebe
to.
Waller-Bridge could be much darker than Jodie.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would hate to cast a woman and have her play exactly the same way as the other woman Doctor, because that doesn't do anyone any favors.
No, I think. Yeah, so Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I'd be very interested.
More than happy to
Mm.
lock that in. I think she's a fantastic actress, and she could definitely. I could really definitely see her playing the Doctor really well, actually.
Mm.
And she's also not she's also not like too famous as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm always worried about big names being like thrown around in these like fan castings. You know, like when like I think it was either last time or this time, like Olivia Colman's name kept being thrown around. And I was like, no, she's too famous now. I don't want any big names jumping in. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she's about the same level of fame as Capaldi was when he got the role. Like, you know, semi-well-known in England, but outside not so much.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, like even with Fleabag, which is a pretty popular show, it's not something that's like catapulted her to like superstardom.
Oh yeah, it's not mainstream. It's not like this. It's not like a household show. It's definitely a cult show. It's again similar to The Thick of It in that regard.
Yep, that's true. So yeah, there's just something about her personality that I really and I would want it to be kind of combative and you know, having, because I don't know, like as I said, you'll notice there's a lot of kind of sort of, how shall I phrase this? There's a lot of sort of combative qualities to a lot of classic Who, like particularly with the older Doctors, that I think is sometimes either missing or kind of downplayed in modern Who. I mean, I think you've said that Capaldi, even, he went through this weird change where he went from cranky grandpa to fun uncle.
Yeah.
And I want to see that kind of, that combative element, even on a smaller scale.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely on a smaller scale, yeah.
And then like even just exploring, as I said, kind of the weight of what being a Time Lord is.
Well, let's
I think she could.
Let's talk about that now, because I think that
sure.
you have a better idea of what this season's arc is going to be, at the very least in terms of story, how it affects our characters. We can touch on, but you have the idea of getting rid of the TARDIS.
Yes. Where
do you see that leading? Like, what's without jumping to the end of the season completely at this point, how's that finale looking?
Bittersweet is the first phrase that comes to mind. And I think it's one of those things, and it's probably been done in Doctor Who before, where the sweetness is there and you realize it, but then the bitterness really starts to creep in. You think, oh my god, what has happened here? The Doctor, because as I said, I've got this all written out here, and I've got I've got 4 episodes worth of ideas here with a couple of points.
Okay, cool.
I'm more than happy to go through them eventually, but broadly speaking, in the end, the Doctor has to kind of make a hard choice and make a compromise, and that choice really quite devastates them a lot, and realizes that, you know, how I'm this sort of, maybe not a godlike figure, but a really powerful person that can change the fate of a lot of people. Maybe that's not always such a good thing.
Okay. What happened to the TARDIS, first of all? Like, why is it gone this season?
They're vacationing on the Eye of Orion, and it just gets destroyed. Like, just...
Kaboom.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, it actually gets destroyed.
We are going to destroy the TARDIS, are we?
Yep. And
Alright. That's a big call to make.
Yeah, that's the cliffhanger of episode 1.
Alright.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay, that's a big move to make.
Yeah. I thought, it's one of those things where it's like, almost like with the predictions for the Centennial Special, I'm like, how crazy can I make this? Let's see.
By the end of the season, So I assume that they're traveling
Hmm.
around post TARDIS destruction with some kind of like vortex manipulator kind of thing.
Yeah, they have this bracelet
Okay.
that is given to them by a new companion who they meet on the Eye of Orion.
New companion, or is this a side character?
Just side character.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
like it's a companion that's with the Doctor throughout the season, but they. I don't think I actually wrote this down, but they. My idea is that they would leave like at the end of the season, like they're there just for the season.
Okay, so it's a one-off companion kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas our
Yeah.
sibling duo are there
More for the long term.
for the long term.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So looking at the end of the season, is this permanent? Like, do they have? Is the bracelet the only form of travel they've got now, or do they find a way to get the TARDIS back?
They do get the TARDIS back, and the
Okay.
bracelet gets destroyed halfway through the season, which leads to some interesting details.
The bracelet gets destroyed halfway through the season,
Yeah, but basically,
and that's
I
when the
think it's
TARDIS comes
halfway.
back.
No, it comes back only at the end, and
Okay.
again, I'll get to why that is. But,
Okay. So once the bracelet is destroyed, what's their travel method?
In the end, they have to use this. So, okay, would you mind if I read out what I've got written down here, or do you want to just sort of wait before? Because that's kind of the only way I'm going to be able to sort of explain all of this.
Okay,
muddiness.
let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
I want to. So this, let's talk about this one season companion that you've got in mind. What have you planned out for them? Like, what do you know about them at the moment?
Well, originally, this companion was meant to be the Master in Disguise companion, and the idea is that they'd have like kind of a combative relationship, but like a sort of a begrudging respect. And there'd be sort of hints that, I can kind of understand you, Doctor, because I also used to have a home planet that I don't have anymore. I wonder what that's a reference to. So that was going to be the original idea. I've kind of just sort of stuck with that. Not the Master thing, but the whole competitive relationship sort of a deal.
Okay.
And they give the Doctor this bracelet. And they go with the Doctor to travel to different places to find the TARDIS, or some way that they can, go back and take all the companions off the Eye of Orion. Which they've, as I said, that's kind of where the whole season kind of starts.
Sure.
So,
can I pitch the Eye of Orion story as episode 2 of the season instead of episode 1?
Sure.
Because I would like the idea of, assuming that this is our first episode with this new Doctor and we're getting to know the Grants as well, I'd like our first episode to be kind of Earth-based, and then episode 2 is the Grant's first adventure. They go to the Eye of Orion.
Sure.
They do whatever happens to the Eye, and then at the end of that episode, we get the cliffhanger of the TARDIS blowing up or being destroyed in whatever way it happens, and then the rest of the season can kick off from what you've got.
Yeah.
The main reason I want to set this up is because I like the. Oh, actually, it doesn't really work. So I've had an idea for how to do the Grant's introduction, or something to do with the Grant's introduction that doesn't quite work if we know the TARDIS is coming back. So my pitch is that they have their adventure. Jo's obviously in the episode because she's their parent, and if we're going to see Children of a Companion, we want to see that companion as well.
The companion, sure.
And by the end of the story, Jennifer and Zach are like, hey, can we travel with you, Doctor? We want to see the universe. We want to see what our mum was talking about, And Jo's kind of hesitant because she's like, oh, I don't know. I didn't really tell you, but it's kind of dangerous as well. And the Doctor sort of encourages Jo by saying, it's okay. I'll drop them off. When they decide they're done, I'll drop them off in like a minute, and you won't even know that they've gone. It's like kind of the same thing that they said to Jackie. But
with Rose.
With Rose. So they get in the TARDIS and they go away, and some time passes and Jo's like, okay, so the TARDIS is obviously malfunctioning again. It didn't land when the Doctor said it would. I'm just going to go about my day. But then she hears the TARDIS materialize again, and it's sort of from her point of view. We hear the no, it's a close up of her face, and we hear the door to the TARDIS opening, and she takes a moment, and her face kind of drops a bit, and she goes, "Where's?" And then the scene cuts, and we go back to the Doctor and the Grants from their perspective, having left Joe the first time, kind of setting up that something might have happened to one of the Grants, but we don't know who or what happened yet. So the entire time they're traveling together, just so we don't have that kind of whole the companions and the Doctor are untouchable because they're the main characters thing. So anytime one of the Grants are in danger, you have that thing in the back of your mind, like, well, is this the moment where something happens to one of them? Like, what's going to happen there? And I just like the idea of setting up the a companion, like in the first episode of a companion being in the show, setting up their end and the fact that one or both of them might not get out of it alive. And with that combined with the whole mental image of the Doctor kind of thing.
Yeah. And which one will it be? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I think that might be an interesting thing to
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. But obviously that doesn't work if the TARDIS is being destroyed in the very next episode, because if the viewers put those events together, they'll know that the TARDIS is okay. So maybe... Actually, what I think we might do is we'll save that moment with Joe and that. We'll save that for the end of the season. And we'll have that be a season cliffhanger. Because by that point,
that makes sense.
By that point, we'll have said goodbye to the third companion, who's only here for this first season. The Grants will still be there. Yeah. Maybe they've come to say hi to Joe, and they're picking up some luggage or whatever. And then, the Doctor can be like, I just lost a companion, or however we decide the third companion is leaving the show.
Yeah, sure.
I want to make sure, Joe, that you're okay with your children being on the TARDIS with me, because we both know how dangerous it can be. And Joe says, just bring them back safe and sound. That's all I ask. And then we have that moment where the TARDIS comes back and we set up that maybe something may have happened to one of them or both of them. I think that works. Yeah, I think I like that.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you have a name for your third companion, by the way, just so I'm not calling them the third companion constantly?
A name, Trax. Trax, not terribly clever, but...
That's alright, it's an alien name.
That's what I came up with.
And it's a
anyway.
companion not from Earth, which I'm all for. I like the idea of non-human companions in the TARDIS, or at the very least non-contemporary Earth human companions in the TARDIS. How many episodes did you say you planned?
I've got 5 here.
Okay. Do we want to, at the moment, assume we're doing a 10-episode season? And if we get other ideas, we can add to our season order, because
we may. I guess we may as well, because I think the way certainly the ideas that I had, it is in a way kind of like The Chase, in that you could add more moments in there. It's obviously just depends on what you want to show, how important it is to the plot and everything like that.
Yeah.
But the way I've come up with it here, you could add more episodes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when I get to the stuff that I've written, we'll see how that goes. I think plot, just in writing general, is one of my weaknesses, which might very well come across here, but we'll deal with that.
So is Trax from the Eye of Orion? Are they a local, or are they also a traveler?
No, I think they're also a traveler that just happens to be there.
Okay. That's actually I really like this concept for the season, because it kind of makes the Doctor Trax's companion.
Yeah, a little bit.
In a weird way. It would put the Doctor on the opposite side of that dynamic for the first time, which I think would be another interesting thing to explore, especially if Trax is combative as well. Yeah,
there's a little... and there's there are little twists, I think, in the narrative that do kind of support the whole Doctor as a companion thing a little bit. So we'll see how that goes.
So I assume that you've come up with a lot for the Eye of Orion episode.
A fair bit.
Do you want to talk me through that now, and we'll decide if that belongs in episode 1 or episode 2, now that we're not doing the companion cliffhanger at the end of episode 1?
Like I said, I've got all the 5 episodes sort of written out here, but we'll take them, step by step. But So some of this, what I'm about to say, because I wrote it before we started this discussion,
Yep.
it may contradict what you've just said, but in any case.
That's
Okay,
right.
so
We
this is
can
episode
discuss it.
1. Yeah. So the Doctor makes some casual travels through the universe. This could be an opportunity to see the Doctor in a relaxed, fun environment, no missions to complete, no planets to save, no time to mend, just a joyful trip across time and space, where the Doctor goes to parties, meets friends, both old and new, and enjoys the wonders of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, sorry.
No, I just said, mm-hmm.
Eventually, the Doctor takes some of their companions, again a mix of old and new, on a vacation of sorts, perhaps to the Eye of Orion. While there, the Doctor meets a new companion named Trax. Trax seems a bit antagonistic, but essentially inquisitive and good-natured. The Doctor and this new companion butt heads for a while, before the companion shows their kind of nature, and the Doctor trusts them. Trax reveals that they lost their homeworld and are forced to wander the universe, though little detail is given at this point. Again, that was the whole old, gee, they lost their homeworld just like the Master, wink wink.
Yeah.
Anyway, perhaps Trax gives the Doctor a teleportation bracelet that can travel anywhere in the universe. Suddenly, the Doctor and the companions find that the TARDIS has been destroyed. This is the cliffhanger of episode 1.
Okay. I think we can rework that slightly into something that would be Do you have an explanation as to how the TARDIS got destroyed? Is that like some kind of... Okay.
Yes, that comes in later.
Okay.
It's mainly just, again, I haven't put any explanations in episode 1 because, again, I want it to be this big crazy cliffhanger where people are like, oh my god, what's going to happen?
That's true. Yeah. I'm still trying to work out if that makes more sense to be episode 1 or 2 of the season. Because assumedly the old/new companions they can easily be filled. That void can be filled by the Grant siblings.
Yeah, exactly. I've forgotten that you talked about the idea about the children of a past companion, but that actually ties in really well with old and new companions coming in. And I never specified how many there would be, but having that mix at the very least will make it interesting.
Yeah, I think this works most for episode 2. I think we still need to... I think episode 1 needs to be we're introducing the Grant siblings, and we're also getting to know our new Doctor.
Yeah, sure.
So episode 2 can be vacationing on the Eye of Orion. Maybe there's like some problem that crops up that they got to sort out, and Trax is also there, and maybe the Doctor suspects Trax of being involved with it in some way because they're a fellow time traveler. But then, as it turns out, no, I just happen to be here as well. I can help you out with the Doctor. And then at the end of the episode, oh no, where's the TARDIS? There's rubble everywhere. It's been destroyed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start making notes on episode 2.
Sure.
Hold on. On the Eye of Orion.
But yeah, I think your idea of that being episode 2 and episode 1 being more a sort of earthbound thing where we get to know this Doctor, I think that actually makes a lot of sense, because if you're going to get to know a Doctor, a new one, it's better to put them on Earth where, they feel kind of at home, and we can see them operating in a world that we understand. So it would presumably be in 21st century Earth.
I agree. Yes, that makes more sense to me. So we can figure out more of what the conflict is in episode 2 in a bit. Let's talk about episode 1 real quick though.
Sure.
So presumably we have the Doctor post-regeneration. TARDIS lands somewhere, and lo and behold, it's Jo. The TARDIS happens to land at in Jo's current home place of residence, either the village that she's living in or whatever. And maybe actually the Doctor, post-regeneration, stumbles at the TARDIS, collapses due to, post-regenerative exhaustion, and Jo stumbles across her and sort of takes her back to her house. To sort of... Jo hasn't been privy to a regeneration before, has she?
No.
She wasn't around when the Doctor regenerated.
No,
No,
that
but
was
she's
Sarah
part
Jane.
of the. But she's part of the companion counseling meeting that was set up at the end of Power of the Doctor. So she'll have
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
about regeneration.
And either then, yeah, even then, before that, she must have,
Must have.
known about it. Yeah, like she was in the Sarah Jane Adventures,
Yeah.
so yeah, so she would certainly know.
So yeah. Post regeneration, Joe helps her out, and then that's when she meets Jen and Zach for the first time, who are visiting Joe. It's Joe's birthday, and her kids have come by to visit. That's
yeah, sure.
Good an explanation as we need.
Yeah.
If so, whatever conflict is happening in the story needs to be really simple, so it doesn't detract from what's going on with the Doctor. Getting to know a new Doctor and new companions. We need the conflict to be kind of simple. I don't want to involve any recurring villains just yet, so
yeah.
we'll
like it. Do you mean when you mean simple? Do you mean like sort of low stakes domestic sort of a?
No, I just kind of mean it can be a run of the mill invasion story just to facilitate.
Okay, yeah.
What's happening in the rest of the episode? Because if the plot is bombastic and insane and takes too many sharp turns and is super intricate, then it's going to distract from getting to know our new characters. We kind of need the plot to be simple and something we've seen before, so we can see how our new Doctor would deal with it.
True. So you mean like for the whole season?
No, just for this first episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So let's say that.
Yeah. Maybe the Doctor's trying to find something like tracking a device or a. Do you know what I mean? Like a really simple. Oh, I need to find the thing. Let's find the thing.
Let's find the thing. Yeah, it's a let's find the thing story.
Yeah.
Something. And what is maybe this thing is like a piece of alien technology that's landed nearby and is affecting the local populace in some way.
Maybe it's something that's like. I mean, I think this might have been done before. Maybe it's like knocked out the internet, or it's messing with TV signals or something.
Maybe that feels a bit too low stakes even for what we're going for here, because we still need it to be important enough that the Doctor considers, doing something about it. Maybe it's emitting this kind of aura that's affecting the moods of everyone around it, and it's making them act really aggressively and
maybe, yeah.
Just it's making people really violent and non-cooperative, and the Doctor's got to go and shut it down so that
peace can be restored.
Peace can be restored and brawling doesn't happen.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
And that's actually good, because that doesn't give us an alien threat to defeat, but it will really allow us to explore our new characters, because assumedly when they get close to the space junk, they'll start to get affected by it as well. And we'll see kind of like the darker sides of our characters and what they're so something like we'll get to kind of like their inner thoughts kind of thing, and we'll see the darker side of the Doctor very briefly. Maybe they're able to contain it more than the others.
That actually reminds me, are we going to be working in any post-regeneration madness here?
I think briefly we will. But I think that... I don't want to do it too much. I think maybe like in the first couple scenes before the Doctor passes out, they're kind of like acting really loopy and that kind of stuff. But then after they pass out and had time to rest at Joe's place, maybe that's enough to get them to go, okay, I'm back.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, in that way, like the post-regeneration madness thing, I think it's something that most fans are going to be expecting, but I wonder if taking care of it fairly soon, it could be, I don't know, a nice subversion, I suppose. either way, though, as you say, you don't want it. Like, it would be better if it didn't distract too much because there's enough going on here.
I agree. Yeah.
That, yeah. Now I do wonder. Again, we'll see how sort of my ideas play out. This whole thing about this signal making people angry and things like that, both in a plot sense, but especially in a thematic sense.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, you'd want that to sort of tie into the end to make it all kind of fit together.
The end of
the season, I mean.
The season. Well, because we are kind of exploring in a weird way, like the dichotomy between our two siblings. You know, their arc is going to be like, who's right about the Doctor. One has this internalized. One starts to get an internalized. What's the word? Resentment, I guess, because it hasn't been what they've been lived up to be. So maybe that can sort of be tied back into it later. And they'll. I like the idea of like exploring this kind of like golden child versus, underappreciated child dynamic, because maybe I like the idea of framing this episode kind of like, because if it is Joe's birthday and that they're back for that, maybe the whole thing can be about, okay, we flew in kind of last minute. We need to get a present for our mother. And maybe that's. In fact, we could probably even call the episode in general. We could call it either the gift or the present or something like that. And no,
that makes sense. I think it's a good idea, and that will actually kind of tie in to some of the ideas that I've got, because there's a good chunk of the season where the Doctor and the companions are separated, and maybe there can be a dynamic between these two siblings where it's like the more positive Doctor, faithful one. They're like, oh yeah, the Doctor's gonna come back. It's gonna be all fine. And the other one's like, no, it's not gonna happen. I've seen this person for who they really are. They're not gonna, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that dynamic could be quite interesting.
I quite like that a lot. I think that's a really solid first episode, and it gives us a lot of time to explore our characters as well. Especially because the main threat is just one piece of space junk. You know, the focus isn't going to be. We're not going to be spending a lot of time on that. It'll just be like, we're out and about, and people are acting kind of weird. What's going on? And then they can explore, but it gives us a lot of time to just sort of live with our characters. And
yes, it's true, and see their true colors.
Exactly, yeah.
Put them in a situation that's not like end of the universe high stakes, but high stakes enough to really sort of get the pressure cooking.
I agree. Yeah,
which would be quite neat. And that actually.
I'm sorry, I'm very quickly making an executive decision. Jennifer is the golden child.
Sure.
And Zach is the resentful younger sibling.
Sure. With that ending of presumably, like, they fix what's happening. They find the bit of space junk.
The Doctor kind of disables it and then
reverses it, but that having just been exposed to like all that anger and negative resentment, that could actually be a good impetus to take them to the Eye of Orion, because it's a vacation spot. Because of, as the Doctor once said, the bombardment of positive ions that makes people, a bit calmer. That could be like a good way to sort of tie that plot element together.
I agree. That's a logical first destination for the Doctor to take the Grants after an adventure like that in their first outing.
And even after, like, even just character-wise, like, that makes sense for the Doctor to do, because it's just like, I've just regenerated, and I'm back on my old shit again. I'm having to save the Earth, and I'm glad I did it, but man, it's tiring. Let's go to the Eye of Orion, because God, I could use a rest. That might be...
I like that a lot. So we've got our first episode pretty set. I don't think there's anything more we need to discuss with that one. It's a really simple first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have our second episode, which is on the Eye of Orion, this vacation spot. They find tracks. There's a conflict that pops up. Maybe this one can be I don't know, because this needs to be equal parts tracks introduction episode and also it's also the first time that the Grant siblings have been. It's their first adventure, so we need to have
A balance, yeah.
we need to have a small balance there. So, in terms of what the conflict is that needs to be resolved plot-wise, it has to be something that Trax looks guilty of initially, so that there can be that conflict between the Doctor and Trax, where the Doctor assumes that Trax is planning something, but it turns out...
Or even just doesn't... And partly maybe doesn't like their personality, maybe they're just... They say something or they act a certain way.
Yeah, well, I assume that the way it would work out is that both Trax and the Doctor assume that the other is responsible because they are both investigating what's wrong. And because the Doctor will find something, and then Trax will be around the corner, and they'll see each other, and they'll go, "Huh, that's a bit weird." And then when the main thing happens that sets off that sets danger off. Again, they both happen to be there at the same time, and it's like, okay, right, you're obviously responsible for this. And Drax is like, are you kidding me? I'm trying to stop you.
Maybe it could be like, because when we've seen the Eye of Orion, because I think it's cropped up a couple of times in the classic series, especially in the Five Doctors, it's a pretty deserted area. So maybe this is a world that the Doctor and maybe only a few other people know about. So if they show up with a group of companions and they find somebody else on the Eye of Orion, they're going to think, "Oh, what's happening here? And both the Doctor and Trax will think the same thing. It's like, why is there someone else on the Eye of Orion? That's a little suspicious because not many other people know about this. Are they intruding with what I'm trying to do here?" And yeah, so.
So what do you imagine the conflict of this episode is, like, in terms of the plot, not the characters, but like, what's the Doctor got to stop?
I'm not sure. Again, because this was meant to be like episode 1, but I don't know. Maybe they get to the Eye of Orion, and again, it starts off with, "Oh, happy days, we're vacationing," but yes, something happens. Like the Doctor notices maybe something's not right. As to what that could be, I'm not sure. I mean, unless you've got any ideas.
Not really, because you're way more familiar with the Eye of Orion than I am.
That's true. Excuse me. Maybe this might sound weird, but like the thing that I mentioned about the bombardment of positive ions.
Yeah.
Maybe the Doctor gets there, and the Doctor's like, the ions don't feel right. Like there's just something about being in that atmosphere where it's like, I should be more relaxed than this, or there's something doesn't feel right. And the other character's like, "Oh, you're paranoid, Doctor.
Yeah,
what are you talking
great.
about?" Yes. Sorry.
Oh, the companions are like, "This feels great. Like I'm."
Yeah. We've just gone through a horrifying experience. This is fine. It's all relaxed. There's nothing going on
here. So clean. Like I feel refreshed just being here. And it's like, should be better than that though. What's going on?
Yeah. Which does make sense because the Doctor, it's kind of implied that they've got like a sort of a heightened senses, like they can feel the Earth moving, and so that would make sense. So maybe the ions are bombarding us correctly. Something's up.
And what do you imagine is up?
This could tie in because there is definitely an explanation as to why the TARDIS got destroyed.
Okay. Well, let's get to that now, actually, because that might
might
lead us into
to the answers.
What's happening on the Eye of Orion specifically.
So
let's jump around a bit. Why did the TARDIS blow up?
So there's a whole bunch of other plot points I got here, but I'll just get to the end of episode. What I've got here is episode 2, but it would actually be episode 3.
Okay.
So the end of it would be, out of nowhere, this is on the Eye of Orion, a literal tear in the fabric of space and time appears, revealing a turbulent rift. Through the rift come several aliens with giant metal claws on one of their arms. They use these claws to tear the fabric of time and space open to travel wherever they like. They kidnap the companions and take them through the rift end episode. And the idea is, these are the people who have destroyed the TARDIS. They're the ones who have done it. And in terms of how it could link back to, the ions don't feel right, maybe the fact that they're tearing open rifts in the space-time continuum, the Doctor can kind of sense that.
Okay.
Because they're there. And again, the ions don't feel right. Something like the Doctor can feel like something's coming.
Yeah.
And this is what was coming.
Okay.
It's these aliens that can, pierce the fabric of reality, basically.
I like that. You saw that as the episode 2, but now 3 cliffhanger. So in your plan, episode 2 would also take place on the Eye of Orion, or have they bounced to somewhere else by this point?
So they get separated.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just check how. Do you mind if I read through the rest of the notes here, or do you want to?
Oh, please go ahead. I want to try and make sense of this.
Yeah, no worries. So the TARDIS is gone. Cliffhanger, scary. So the next episode starts with panicking. The Doctor grapples with the seemingly impossible idea that the TARDIS is gone. They finally accept it and discuss with the others what to do. Some of the companions conclude that the Doctor must leave to find a way to escape, while others beg the Doctor to stay. The Doctor insists that they stay with the companions the whole time, but is finally persuaded to leave the planet to get help. Trax suggests using the bracelet, which I think I mentioned this, but it's introduced earlier.
Yeah.
Trax suggests using the bracelet, as it can take the wearer to any place in the universe with a breathable atmosphere. But there's a catch. It's broken, and the destination of the teleportation is always random. The Doctor agrees to use the device, and Trax insists on coming with them, as they know what it's like to be a lonely wanderer and understand best how to use the bracelet. The Doctor and Trax teleport away. They find themselves trapped on an abandoned spaceship. The place is completely deserted, and the vessel is barely functioning. But the Doctor and Trax assess the technology they have at their disposal, and conclude they can use the ship to travel a decent distance. They begin to fly the ship across space. We periodically cut back and forth between this voyage and how the other companions are doing on the Eye of Orion. They discuss how scared they are for themselves and the Doctor, but otherwise get to know each other a bit better. So that in that scene, that could be where that dynamic between the two siblings happens, or it's like, oh yeah, no, the Doctor's totally coming back, isn't that right, Grandma Jo? And it's like, no, what are you talking about? This is obviously a maniac we're dealing with. Anyway, and then it's out of nowhere, a literal tear in the fabric of space and time appears, and that's what's now episode 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume that throughout all of this, there's been something happening on the spaceship that the Doctor and Trax are on, which would form that episode's plot as well, right? Because otherwise, that is like 5 to 10 minutes of an episode, yeah?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. There is other stuff that does happen on the ship, but it happens in the next episode, but...
That can be folded in, I think.
Yeah, you're right. That could be what, pardon?
That could be folded into the same episode, just so that there's a bit more going on.
Sure.
I'm trying to work out how that relates to an episode 2 conflict as well. Maybe the episode 2 plot could be that one of these creatures has already come through as sort of like the advanced guard, and just trying to work out, because it wouldn't be like they wouldn't be trying to destroy the Eye of Orion itself.
No, and you know what? I may as well just give away like what the reason why they're doing this, because it'll come in later.
That'll help me a lot.
Yeah. Pardon me.
Okay.
So the idea is they've destroyed the TARDIS to try and harvest its Artron energy, because they're trying to put their home planet in a time lock, because in their like time and space, it's circling a dying star, and their entire species is about to get wiped out. So that's why they've done this.
Okay.
Now, I have specifically written that they don't know who the Doctor is, or even really what the TARDIS is. They've just sort of locked on to
They've
this
found some
Artron energy, and they're trying to destroy it to tap its energy and harvest it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I quite like that as a story, because there's that's
Cool.
that's like it subverts the we're just an evil alien species kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and again, it kind of leads to the ending sort of conflict, because in the end, the Doctor, finds their companions, and find these creatures, which I've just called the Rift Treaders because I couldn't come up with a wacky sci-fi sounding name. So anyway, and in the end, like, the Doctor obviously finds out why they've done all this, and yes, it's not just a simple, "Ooh, we're baddies doing bad things." It's, no, our entire planet's about to get wiped out. Please help us. So, I'm gonna just give me a second. I'm gonna read out what I've got written for this final episode, just to sort of put it all together, if that's cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, this is the final episode. Eventually, the Doctor confronts the Rift Treaders and tries to bargain with them for their friends. Unfortunately, the only way the Doctor can take all their friends back home safely is to use the TARDIS, and the only way of getting to it is by using the Rift Treaders' technology to travel back to the point before the TARDIS is destroyed on the Eye of Orion. I don't know if I mentioned, but the Rift Treaders can travel in time.
Yes.
And space.
Yeah,
of course, this would ruin any chance of the Rift Treaders of saving their planet. There is a moral conundrum confronting the Doctor here, where they must decide whether to take this course of action and save their friends, or sacrifice their friends and save the Rift Treaders' planet. The utter destruction of the TARDIS is the only way the Rift Treaders can access the Artron energy to harvest it, so it appears there is no other way to get out of the problem.
So,
and then the last...
Are you just real quick? Are you imagining the companions or the Grants get taken by the Rift Treaders at the end of episode 3, and then we don't see them again until the finale?
We cut back and forth between what the Doctor and Trax are doing, and how the companions are faring, being kidnapped by these aliens.
Okay, but for the rest of the season, the Grants are on the Rift Treaders' home.
Yes, that's the way I've imagined it. Okay. I understand, obviously, why that might be a problem, but
yeah, can I pitch that they get captured before the finale, be it 2 parts or whatever? Because I think we still need time for the companions to be around the Doctor. To work with their whole mental image subplot kind of thing. So that way we can actually... That way, by this point, they've had enough time around the Doctor to actually have the debate of the Doctor's coming to get us, or the Doctor has no way of coming to get us. I don't trust them at all. Because if we have that conflict pop up after an episode or 2, they haven't had enough time to form an opinion yet.
Yeah, that's that's fair. That works.
So I think that after, I'm gonna make some tweaks to the current plan as I've heard it.
Sure.
So at the start of episode 3, it's not like the bracelet, they all travel together, I think, just so we can again have adventures with this new crew bonding together. But then I think at around episode 8, assuming that this final story is a 2-parter, that's when the Rift Treaders appear and kidnap the companions.
Sure, no, that makes sense. And I think I have a couple of other ideas here where you could, as I said, it's kind of like the chase, where you could just add more stuff if you needed it. So we could, I think, certainly do that, because the basic idea of sort of the in-between episodes are the Doctor and Trax are on this spaceship, and they figure out that the spaceship has a hyperdrive which will allow them to travel, great distances much more quickly. And they're traveling through an asteroid belt, and some of the ship gets destroyed, but they find out that it's got a hyperdrive, and they the Doctor has to teach Trax quantum physics, and it takes them months to teach Trax this, and they finally both together manage to fix the hyperdrive.
Honestly, that is a fantastic part one of this finale. Like, the companions have been, like, the Grants have been captured at the end of episode 8, and then episode 9, it's the Doctor and Trax bonding episode, and because it takes months for them to fix it, we can really break down the Grants during that time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm penciling that in for episode 9 right now. I really enjoy that.
Sure. That my original idea was it was going to be much earlier in the season, but you're right. It kind of works better for again, it's putting these characters in a pressure cooker.
Yeah, but we also need to have episodes before this point just to be standalone episodes.
Yeah, and I have another idea for another one of the episodes here. Just give me a sec while I read through this. So, my idea is at some point they use this spaceship that they're on to finally they just happen to, like, they find a safe planet to land on. When they do this, the bracelet gets destroyed, and so does the ship. The ship crashes, so they're marooned, basically, on this planet. Now, thankfully, the planet they've arrived on is a big multicultural metropolis that I've called Astropolis. Maybe not a great name. I came up with that quickly, but So it's this big metropolis. But one of the sort of more, I think, more interesting problems that arises is because the TARDIS has been destroyed, they no longer have the ability to innately understand the languages of other people. So now they can only rely on the Doctor's previous knowledge of other species' languages, which you can assume would be pretty extensive even without the TARDIS, but not complete. And the Doctor might also use the ability of Time Lord telepathy to read the minds of some of the inhabitants, just to understand how the world works and how to inhabit it. I understand. So, and my idea is that they stay on the planet for quite a long time, and I understand that might be a little bit similar to it's the Day of the Doctor, where he's on Trenzalore for hundreds of years. Yeah, it's something like that. So,
can I actually
bearing that in mind? Yeah,
can I make an alternate pitch?
Sure.
I'd like Astropolis to be the third episode of the season, and just be where the bracelet took them first, and we can have an adventure there. Because I think I like the idea a bit more of them being the Doctor and Trax being trapped on this broken spaceship and it taking a long time to fix, and then that's the reason why they couldn't get to the Grants quicker. Because I think if we add too many reasons, it just becomes a bit ridiculous,
a bit muddled. Yeah, sure.
But if we have this the Doctor's frantically trying to fix the ship, it's I need to get back to the Grants. They're relying on me, but they're so the Doctor is so panicky about it that they're not doing it right, and then Trax has to be there to be calm down, Doctor. We have to think rationally about this. And the Doctor's well, what do you care? We're just passengers to you. You don't even you don't have a connection to the Grants like I do, and then we can actually see them bond throughout that episode. At the end of episode 9, they get back. They get to the Rift Traders' home. We can have that be a really solid character study episode on two fronts, and then episode 10 is the finale, and then we actually explore the Rift Traders a bit. But I think I like the idea that I like this Astropolis idea, this big multicultural alien hub, and I think that could be a great one to do immediately after the TARDIS is destroyed, because that's the first time, presumably, that they'll have to deal with this situation of not being able to understand alien languages. Because I think otherwise it doesn't really make sense. It would only pop up towards the end of the season.
Yeah, sure. I think my idea was more like a halfway point, but you're right to point out that that's a really interesting idea, and we want to kind of milk that early. Which, fair enough.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense for that to pop up halfway through if they've already been having one-off adventures in other alien civilizations. If this is the first time that the TARDIS translation matrix being out of the picture has cropped up, people are going to go, what about all those other things?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Okay, so
and also, I'll go over this point now, I guess.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
the idea is that the Astropolis, it comes in the end. So I'll just read out. This is the last point that I've got
Yeah.
for the whole thing. The Doctor decides to trick the Rift Treaders and finally uses the Rift technology to travel back to the Eye of Orion and save their friends. In a compromise, the Doctor decides to use the TARDIS to travel to the point in time and space where the last surviving Rift Treaders are about to depart on their mission. They save the remaining Rift Treaders and take them to Astropolis in the hopes they will be able to find a new home there to live and repopulate. The Doctor may end the season with a sense of relief at having saved their friends, but also with a deep bitterness that they couldn't save the Rift Treaders planet. This could lead to the Doctor saying how much they hate being a Time Lord, given how much pain it can cause them and other people.
Uh-huh. So does this plan require the Doctor crossing their own timeline?
Yes, it does, and I was going to ask you about that, how that would work, and I also realize it would be in that sense like you'd have multiple instances of the same Doctor, so that's a whole other
well
thing you might have to deal
what
with. So
I quite like the idea that, because we're going to need to. What if the Doctor crossing their own timeline to save the TARDIS is what activated the ability of the Rift Treaders? Like, because of this disturbance in the flow of time, they were somehow able to gain the ability to
tear open the fabric
open
of reality. Yeah. Sure. No, that makes sense.
Because that might set up a nice little closed loop kind of thing.
And it could work because, like, as we've said, the Doctors, they're there on the Eye of Orion, but it's like, I've sensed a disturbance in the Force, and it's, and it is inadvertently them traveling back on their own timeline that's actually causing all of this, so it all kind of fits together in that sense.
Also, it would help a lot if the Doctor has, like, I'm sorry, but, like, your planet being destroyed is a fixed point, I can't do anything to save it, and that being part of their bitterness at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think especially it might be also helpful if that's how Trax leaves the show. Like, in order to get, somehow we manufacture a situation without, not putting it so bluntly like that, of course, but we God damn it, I just dropped my AirPod case, and I'll have to look for that later. Back on topic. If we have a situation where Trax has to stay behind on the planet in order to let the Doctor and Grant back through back to the Eye of Orion, because if Trax is a one and done companion, then their exit has to be tied to this finale in some way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if the bracelet's getting destroyed, then
because I think and it does kind of tie in, characterize with Trax, because like I said, and I know it was kind of reserved for the whole Secret Master idea, but if this person has had, like, their homeworld destroyed, well, they're looking for a new home, so they may be hesitant at first, but they would be comfortable in the end living on Astropolis because it's, a multicultural place and they're good people and they can live out their life.
Oh, that's true. The Trax might not be. Trax stays behind on the planet and is like, it's okay, Doctor. I'm happy enough to be. I'm happy. After all this, I've been traveling for so long. I'm happy now to settle somewhere.
Sure.
And
yeah.
If we go back to the Doctor not being able to fix himself to anything, that Jodie stuff, Trax deciding to do that, and then the Doctor being like, "Well, you have that luxury. Good for you." And but I still can't.
Yeah.
I think I really like that idea, honestly.
Yeah, I think this ending, that moral conundrum, it was kind of one of my favorite ideas of it, because, like, making those really tough decisions, my friends, the greater good and all that's a classic Doctor Who thing to do. And I'm reminded, I probably mentioned this before, but there's a scene in The Evil of the Daleks where they're all trapped on Skaro in a dungeon area of the Daleks Citadel. And the Doctor, I think, basically says, you know, I like if it's you, all my friends here versus the Earth, I wouldn't. I think he says I wouldn't choose. I wouldn't choose the Earth. Nope, sorry, scratch that again. I wouldn't choose all the lives in this room, if it meant like sacrificing the Earth. So that classic dynamic of what decisions does the Doctor have to make? Who does the Doctor save? I think that is what I'm trying to get at with this ending. And I think in that way, it's kind of nice that the Rift Treaders, they're not just these standard baddies. It's like, hey, our planet's about to be destroyed. Oh God, you know. So, yeah. That was the main idea.
I'm just running down the finale stuff really quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
Trax stays behind.
Mm-hmm.
And then Grant's visit home. Say bye to Joe again. And then we get the end of season. What's going to happen to the Grant's cliffhanger? Cool. So now we've got a chunk of episodes in the middle of the season to play with now.
Yeah,
and we can do a lot of, classic standalone stories in this chunk here. We'll come back to Astropolis because I think there is a story we can tell there. But I want to briefly touch on the idea that friend of the show, Sam Sweeting, sent in.
Yes.
So Sam, as being one of our guests this season, has the luxury of writing an episode herself. She's one of our guest writers for the season. So we asked her to pitch an episode. And we told her about basic stuff we were planning with the TARDIS not being there and there being a sibling duo. And she's sent in a pitch that is Jurassic Park.
Well, I think it's a bit more complicated than that, but
it is.
There's Jurassic Park elements.
I'm gonna read out her pitch in detail, substituting names for what we've added in at the moment. So the Doctor, Zach, Jen, and Trax arrive in a humid jungle environment, and the Doctor is confused by the date displayed on the bracelet, which says they're in 1925, despite the surroundings being indicative of a much older time. When trying to get their bearings, they push through the brush and come face to face with a Stegosaurus. Cue intro. Surprised by the presence of dinosaurs, Doctor and companions are caught off guard and bump into a party of explorers, Percy Fawcett and his son, Jack Fawcett, and Jack's friends, Riley Rimmel. The Doctor connects the dots after hearing Percy Fawcett's name. They really are in 1925, but they're deep in the Amazon, specifically the Lost World, which is why the ecosystem is full of prehistoric life. The Explorer party brings the Doctor and siblings back to their camp where they meet the final member of the expedition, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. One of the siblings is about to reference Sherlock Holmes, but Jack cuts them off, saying it's a bad idea. Doyle hates writing him, and Percy is more popular than Professor Challenger, the character of Doyle's based on him. The expedition explained that they're here to find Z. The name Percy is given to a supposed ancient city hidden somewhere in the Lost World. The Doctor takes the siblings aside with timeline concerns. Both Fawcett and Rimmel went missing on the expedition, and Conan Doyle was never meant to be present in the first place. So the Doctor wants to keep an eye on things while also not interfering with events regarding the fates of the others. As the group continues deeper into the jungle toward the supposed lost city, we get some character interactions. Conan Doyle is here to finally go on a real adventure instead of just writing about them all the time. Riley is showing signs of fever. The siblings are conflicted about doing nothing to help despite knowing the others are doomed to never make it out alive, etc. The group find the city, which the Doctor identifies as a crashed spaceship they don't recognize. The group are chased by a pair of Allosaurus towards the ship, but Riley doesn't make it, sacrificing himself to the dinosaurs to divert them away, much to Jack and the siblings' dismay. The Doctor begins investigating the ship. They don't recognize the species or planet of origin, but they had time travel capabilities. In the crash, the small crew died and the time drive was damaged, creating a field of displaced time that's the reason for the Lost World. However, the field is slowly expanding, creating time distortions that will eventually encompass the whole planet. And then she writes, to be honest, I don't really have much of an ending for this. If you guys have ideas, go for it. But broadly speaking, they have to stop the type thingy. Percy and Jack have to sacrifice themselves, and the Doctor and siblings help Conan Doyle escape and return home, agreeing never to speak of what he saw since no one would ever take him seriously again anyway, but mourns the loss of his friends and promises to write one last Professor Challenger novel to commemorate their memory. The Doctor and siblings reflect on the unfortunate realities of interfering with history, the usual Doctor Who deal, before moving on to the next adventure in search of the missing TARDIS. It's a pretty neat idea. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
I was about to bring up that maybe the Rift Shredder's left to open a rift, and that's how the dinosaurs are coming through, but I forgot that there is an explanation that Sam gives us.
Yeah.
I can see that as a really solid episode 6.
Yeah. Yeah, a nice mid-season thing where it's like, it kind of starts off as almost like a, standard historical romp, with, ooh, dinosaurs, ooh, how wacky. But then it kind of gets more serious in the end. It's a kind of nice halfway point where the audience and the characters can kind of reflect. And I think that works quite well in that sense.
I don't think we need to go into too much of the specifics of like how the conflict is resolved at the end. Like, we don't have to plan out every little detail of the script. What Sam's given us is enough, I think.
Yeah, she planned out most of it, so and we kind of know, because this is a very sort of connected season, we will probably sort of know how it would resolve itself, like how we'd move on to the next episode.
I have a pitch for an episode.
Sure.
And I want to know your thoughts about it, because it's something that I've been thinking about for a while now. It's another subversion of the everyone in the species is evil trope.
Yeah.
And so the Doctor and the companions land on an alien world, and they're integrating with their culture, and it's like, oh, look how this is an amazing civilization, that so much culture, like, it's really fascinating to be here. And then spaceships appear in the sky and start sort of bombing the town that they're in, I guess. Doesn't have to be that specifically, but that's just kind of my current pitch. And the Doctor recognizes their ships and goes, oh, they're from Earth. The humans are here. And it's a standard alien invasion story, but the aliens that are invading are humans. And so the Doctor's like, well, I gotta stop them. And one of the companions is like, what do you mean stop them? They're humans. And the Doctor is able to counter with, well, so what? You've seen me deal with alien invasions before. These are the invading aliens. What makes them different this time? Just because they're your species?
Yeah. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's... I like that specific idea of, alien invasion, it's the humans. I don't think that's ever been done before, but there have been a lot of similar sort of ideas and certainly themes that have cropped up again and again in Doctor Who, whether it be, in the Sea Devils, or even the Christmas invasion, where it's like, oh, who are the real monsters? It was the humans all along. But it does sort of... It ties in with all these sort of themes about, well, what's the value of human life versus the value of the life of anyone else, basically. These decisions the Doctor has to make.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually going to put that right before... Like, this is the episode in which the companions get abducted, I think. So this is episode 8. It leads into directly into episode 9. Because I think this is the one that's going to draw the biggest rift between probably Zach and the Doctor. Because it's the one that's going to deal the most with the harsh realities of what the Doctor has to do. Maybe it does end in the Doctor sort of blowing up the fleet like they have done several times to other invading aliens. But obviously they will have done the whole, I'm giving you a choice now. Leave these people in peace, or I will stop you. Because that's what they've done.
And then
that's classically what they will do before going, okay, I guess I have to destroy your fleet then. And I don't think that's too out of character for the Doctor to do.
No, I think that works perfectly fine. And again, it really is great because certainly specifically we just haven't seen that before. But like it would be such a wonderful subversion because we've seen the Doctor sort of destroy the spaceships, or destroy the fleets of villain after villain. Well, then we think, well, what if it happens to humans?
Exactly,
how are we going to cope?
And
with
then that might actually lead to a lot of those moments being reflected on, like retrospectively. Because in the past, we have looked at those as going, well, that's the evil species taken care of. But after this episode, you might look back on those and go, well, actually, those might have had people on it that were conflicted about what they were doing. They might have had people
Yeah.
who had families and stuff like that, you know. And you
Yeah.
know, what is this? What the cost is to save one civilization? You know, like
It reminds me, and I think I mentioned this before when we did the Sea Devils. And I know this, like, it's kind of a joke, but the YouTuber Davis, he made a video about, you know, doctors ranked from least to most Tory, and he mentioned the fact that Pat Troughton, his doctor, I think it was in the Dominators, like he destroyed a retreating fleet, and he just does this funny impersonation of the second Doctor. It's like, oh crumbs, I think I just committed a war crime.
yeah. And that
So,
actually,
but yeah, having that to reflect on, I think, is a really interesting dynamic.
yeah, and that actually it actually leads into episode 9 quite well, because the Doctor, having witnessed the Rift Treaders home through the rift personally, having seen the companions pull through, you go, I know that planet, I know where I need to go. Trax, your bracelet is not reliable enough. We need another way to get there. And the people on that planet will go, well, you just saved us. Please, have one of our spaceships. It's yours. It has hyper jump capabilities.
Yeah, sure.
You saved, go ahead. You're our savior. Please, take whatever you want. And that might explain how they get the spaceship in the first place, which leads to episode 9 when they go through the asteroid belt and have to fix it again.
And also, I kind of love the fact that I just thought of this. If they're the planet they're invading, it's presumably Astropolis, yeah. Like
it could be. I don't think it needs to be Astropolis. It could just be like any planet. Like they've just landed on this planet. It's got this. I imagine it being like the home species of the planet. So Astropolis is like this hub of any species. I like the idea of it being just like a one species kind of deal, because that would make the comparison to the standard Doctor Who invasion story a lot stronger if it is just one species invading another species.
That's true. I think the only reason why I said it could be Astropolis is because I don't know, there's something about, I mean, it's fucked up, but like the humans see this wonderful multicultural society as well. They're like, well, no more of that.
Yeah.
It's going to be human world from now on.
Well, I imagine the invasion being more in terms of colonization purposes, kind of like drawing a parallel to, the British Empire conquering a lot of the unknown world in the middle of the last millennium. It's like it could be in the aftermath of one of the Earth crises that have been hinted at several times throughout Doctor Who, solar flares happening, that's been hinted at in when we saw the Sontaran experiment, or even having fled Earth before the events of Orphan 55. They're looking for a new home and they see, oh, this one is good, this one clearly supports life. It's ours now. We're taking it.
Exactly. Maybe there could be like a really wonderful sort of bitter and ironic line where the Doctor, it's a callback, and they just say, this is the great and bountiful human empire.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's make it like the second or the third great and bountiful human empire. Just because, we know
because I realized it was the
fourth one never happened.
It's the fourth one that's in the but either way, the great and bountiful human empire.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah, I think it would be quite neat. It's just, again, just really getting that bitterness. And it also helps with that dynamic between the Doctor and the siblings. Because if you've got one that's more bitter, it's like, well, this is how much the Doctor cares about humanity. This is how much the Doctor cares about their friends. They're not so great, so it kind of works. And I'm glad in a way that you've said, oh, this is going to be episode 8, because that kind of perfectly leads into the character conflicts. Because it's like, the Doctor obviously would feel like, oh, I'm definitely going to save my companions, but there may be a bit of conflict because it's like, oh, well, they don't like me, so why am I,
Yeah. I'm calling this episode The Invasion from Earth, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
Just because it plays off the invasion of Earth in a nice little way. So we currently have 3 episodes in our season that have nothing in them. We also currently haven't had any recurring villains this season.
Yeah, it's true.
I think we should have at least one. So we've got episodes 4, 5, and 7 that still need filling. I think we can make episode 4 and 5 a 2-part episode.
Yeah, sure.
With our recurring villain for the season, whoever that's going to be.
I'm just going to... not to, throw a spanner in the works, but I am quite legitimately asking, Like, do we need a recurring villain?
We
Like,
don't-
are we like, what can we do with that?
We don't need
I
one, but it is nice to have one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Especially if you believe the theory that in 2005, in order to be able to use the Daleks, they signed a contract being like, you got to use the Daleks once a year.
Oh yeah. Wait, is that really how they did it?
I no idea.
Oh, man.
That's the theory, at least, because there has been
Oh,
at
okay.
least one Dalek appearance every
Every year.
whether or not, sometimes it's been their own episode, sometimes it's just been they've been
There. Yeah.
for like a brief appearance when they haven't really needed to be.
Mhm.
I don't know if we need the Daleks this season. I think we can give them a bit of a break.
Yeah. Sure, but some other recurring villain that I mean, I'd say like the second sort of protocol I think is instinctively would be something like the Cybermen, but I wonder if there's maybe a lesser known or lesser recurring villain that we could take a look at, like the
My thoughts exactly.
know.
Yeah.
yeah, like the Ice Warriors or the Zygons or something that
Mhm.
could crop up.
For the longest
Um,
time, I've had an idea for a Vashta Narada story
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know how to do,
Mhm.
and it's
Right.
the Vashta Narada during the Ice Age.
Uh-huh.
And the whole idea behind that is, well, there were months at a time when it was just nighttime. You said it.
Oh, you mean yeah.
You said it close to one of
I
the
see.
poles where it's like they have like weeks
Yeah,
and
it's
weeks
like
of
30
sunshine.
days of night
So
sort of thing,
they had like weeks of sunshine and then like a couple minutes of night, but then when it gets into winter, it's like the inverse.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah, because like the Vashta Narada are at their scariest when
When
there's
they're in
no
darkness,
sun
of
for
course, yeah.
weeks.
Yeah,
Um,
that I think is quite an interesting and cool idea.
Because I think the whole point behind the Vashta Narada is that they're born from spores in trees, right? So my theory is you have this there's like this one little forest in the Ice Age, and Vashta Narada they've landed there somehow. We don't know how yet. But they're sort of gestating in these trees, and they're waiting for the night to come so that they can spread.
Wacky idea pitch
Mhm.
here. Could the way they got there, could it be from space and it's the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs? Because when that happened, there were, I think, I don't know how long it was. We really should have had Sam on, I guess, but
Mhm.
I think it was maybe hundreds of years. Either way, a long time.
Yeah, well,
Where
when the
darkness covered the planet,
Yeah,
and
blanketed
that's
in
how we
night.
got ice ages. So
that's not
maybe
how,
something like
that
that.
wouldn't have been how we got the Ice Age I'm referring to, because that's the
Mhm.
one that happened like 100,000 years ago with mammoths. And
oh yeah.
yeah, because there's no way that the Vashta Narada would have waited that long. Like,
Yeah, fair.
But I think actually, maybe we save that concept for a later season if we decide to revisit this, because we've already got a dinosaur episode in this season.
Yes, it's true.
Putting in a mammoth
Um,
episode, which is something that I still can't believe the show hasn't done. I can't believe they haven't gone back to the Ice Age yet. It's something that they really need to do that. It's so
Yeah,
obvious.
Yeah. But, this is like having dinosaurs and mammoths, this is Doctor Who, not a Walking With series.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. No, that's fair.
I still think it's a good idea to have episode 4 and 5 be a 2-part story, because I like
mhm.
those for character exploration. They give more time.
Do you still want to do the Vashta Narada, or just keep that for the?
I want to keep that in my pocket for now.
Sure.
I don't know if do you have any loose concepts that you've wanted to explore? The reason I bring up recurring villains is because that's a really easy avenue to come up with new stories, because it could be like, you might consider like the Sontarans and go, I don't know why they haven't done this with the Sontarans before.
Yeah.
and then you go, well, let's do it then. Like,
It's kind of annoying, and I mean, I know that obviously we're planning for like this imaginary future season,
yeah,
and it may just be the emotions that we're feeling now, but it's kind of annoying that they've had these recurring villains recently in Doctor Who with Chibnall, because I just feel kind of a little sour on the idea, slightly sour on the idea of recurring villains, because they weren't handled terribly well.
yeah. Well, let's see if we can.
You're
Figure
not
out...
saying that we can't do that, but I'm just saying it sticks in the mind.
Let's figure out. Has there been a villain that hasn't shown up in a long time? Like even potentially since the classics.
The Zabi and the Menoptera. Yeah, let's. I'm joking, but yeah.
I'm just got a list here.
I mean, there will obviously be quite a.
Heaps,
I think
right?
quite a lot.
Tell you what, we haven't seen the Slovene in a while.
That's true. When was the last time they made any appearance in?
I think they
were they there with the Pandorica?
I don't think they were with the Pandorica.
Right.
They were in the Sarah Jane Adventures. There were villains in the Sarah Jane Adventures as well. I think they were also...
technically it wasn't the Slovene, it was that other family.
That's true, yeah. The Slovene is the family. Raphsicorhynchophalabatorians are the...
Taurus is the species.
Yeah. There's a villain called Beep the Meep. What are you? Oh, I see. You're from the comics.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Beep the Meep.
Beep the Meep. That's nonsense.
Yeah. The Zygons might be fun because we haven't seen them.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that the Zygons are currently living on Earth as well. But maybe this could be like another. Well, that wouldn't be every Zygon. That would just be like a certain group of them.
Some of them. Yeah.
So maybe there's another group of Zygons out there that are doing something else. It would be nice to do a Zygon story.
Yeah, it might be fun. I mean, unless, because in terms of like the more not like super famous but pretty famous villains, it's them or the Ice Warriors. Those are the ones that kind of stick out in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's some other recurring villain and like when we mean villain, we mean like a whole like group of them. It wouldn't be like an individual, because that might sort of be too much of a talking head situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Could we do the Daemons?
Maybe.
Well, that's actually the Daemons was a Joe Grant story actually, so maybe that might be a nice one to do, because they've Joe might have told them about them.
I don't know. The only thing I'll add is it's also a master story. I don't know if the audience would be like expecting, is the masters are going to show up? Because I mean, maybe not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. Do you wanna? I don't know. I'm more inclined to go with the Zygons, because I think there's a fair bit you can do there with like the war mentality and the human disguises.
I agree.
That might be quite fun, actually.
Yeah, let's do a Zygon story
then. Sure. You could even have, which sibling is real?
So are we imagining this happening on Earth? Or is this a different Zygon clan
I think
infiltrating a different culture or a different time in history?
I think having it on Earth might work.
So are we doing a
Simply
direct
as a-
sequel to the other Zygon stories that we've had recently?
I trust your knowledge more on what happened in their stories because I have seen them, but it's been years and I
Yeah.
probably even then wasn't paying too much attention. But yeah, yes, I would probably say so. At least it's like it's happening on the same timeline in
Okay.
those established events.
Well, that
Like we're conscious of them and the audience is conscious of them.
would give us a
in that
reason
sense.
to bring Unit back as well, which I'm
I
all
wonder-
for.
Like getting back to Earth, even for that brief period, might be a way to kind of help ground the season a little bit because we started on Earth.
True, yeah.
But sort of coming back to it, just might be a good way to sort of help the audience because there's quite a lot of stuff we're throwing at them in this season, and just
Yeah.
sort of having them back on Earth. Maybe even if they start in a sort of a fairly relaxed tone or a bit more relaxed, it's like, oh, we're home and like it's great. So maybe something like
That being said,
like
if
that.
we're setting up the bracelet as something that takes you to random places in time and space, and they go to Earth twice,
Yeah, that's gonna be a little.
yeah, because we're already doing our 1925 story with the Found World.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
if they
that's
go
true.
to Earth
Yeah,
a
that's
second
true.
time, that would be a bit
Yeah.
hard
Especially
to
if
believe.
especially if it's like, oh, we're home. How convenient.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Magic Bracelet.
Because that kind of stuff
Oh.
makes a lot of sense if we're traveling in the TARDIS, because the Doctor has an Earth
Yeah, because
fascination.
yeah.
And also,
Incidentally,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go. No, I was just surprised. I don't think we've brought this up yet, but we've looked at two First Doctor stories, and I'd completely forgotten that. I think one of the big conceits of the first few seasons is the Doctor didn't have control over where the TARDIS went.
Yeah.
It would transport to wherever. It's why in the Time Meddler, when the companions see the TARDIS is gone, they're really concerned because it's like the Doctor can't get back to us now. So, anyway, yeah, that's just a little tidbit. I'm just surprised we never brought that up.
That's a good point.
It's a pretty big contrast to what the adventures are like now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
And this is kind of why I said this is almost like The Chase a little bit, because it's like, oh, randomly hopping from different places, and we're not sure where we're gonna go. But yeah.
I just had a thought.
Sure.
What if the Zygons are the villain of Astropolis?
Could work. So do we want... Oh, okay, yeah, so Astropolis has already been introduced. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Sure, that would... No, and that could work because as we've said, it's a multicultural society.
Mm-hmm.
That could give the Zygons, a greater variety of disguises in a way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It could be kind of fun.
I'm trying to work out. Maybe the whole point of Astropolis is just like, there's no one, no species is higher on the food chain than any other.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They've worked out this like pure equilibrium of, what's mine is yours, all completely like, a quote-unquote communist utopia, but not that.
Yeah.
And the Zygons,
yeah.
And the Zygons are like slowly working their way up through the
echelons of society.
Yeah, and they're trying to change that,
dismantle it, from within.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I also, this is another random idea, but it might actually work quite well if we're kind of dealing with this idea of, not every person of a species is bad and things like that. What if we kind of establish that with this episode where near the end, maybe the Doctor or someone kills someone who they know is a Zygon, like they've transformed back from whatever they were, but it turns out they weren't a bad person at all. Like they were actually either just a person trying to live their life on Astropolis, or they were actively trying to work against the bad Zygons trying to destroy the planet.
Yeah, if it's like a Zygon versus Zygon like civil war kind of thing, and this actually that is could that just be its own episode? Do we need Astropolis for that? No, you kind of need you need the melting pot of different cultures to confuse
thematically
things.
you want it to all come together.
Yeah, I agree.
But I like just the idea of, I mean, not the Doctor themselves, because again,
it's got to be one of the side characters they meet on this adventure.
could be Trax who does it. Trax might be still a little bit suspicious, and maybe there's a conflict. It's like, oh, the Doctor's like, no, I don't use guns, get it away from me, icky. But maybe there's a bit where near the end of the episode, they're really they're trapped or something like that, and one of the Zygons comes towards them, and Trax maybe they don't literally get an okay from the Doctor saying, yeah, shoot them, but they feel, oh, it's okay to do this, and they shoot them, and it turns out, oh, it wasn't a bad Zygon at all, they were trying to help, and the Doctor's like, what the hell have we done?
That's the part 1 cliffhanger, and then the part 2 cliffhanger is the civil war of the Zygons.
Yeah.
Not the top 2 cliffhanger, rather, but like part 1 is all about this sect of Zygons that are infiltrating Astropolis and trying to take over all elements of Astropolis society. And then at the end of part 2, Trax kills who he believes is the Zygon leader, and then as they're dying, they're like, "Oh, I'm actually trying to stop these Zygons from, I'm with the Resistance or whatever." And then part 2 of this story is the trying to mitigate as much damage as possible, or as little damage as possible, or try and make sure that this Zygon versus Zygon clash doesn't result in too many innocent casualties, and try and resolve the issue peacefully. That's a fucking amazing story. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it should be. Yeah, it would be pretty fun to do. And again, all those delicious little sort of moral conflicts can sort of really thematically underpin the whole episode. What was the name of the episodes in the 12th Doctor story? Was it the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion?
That's correct, yeah.
Maybe we can call them the Zygon Evasion and the Zygon Diversion. I don't know, does that work?
I like the idea of calling episode 4 the Zygon Diversion. But I think we're safe to call episode 3 just Astropolis.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because it's such a big part of the episode, and it's a new wacky concept. It's good to sort of flag it from the beginning as, oh, this is the thing. It's a location story.
You know what? I prefer the idea of keeping with that episode naming scheme because it's cute and it reminds me of Blank of the Daleks.
Oh yeah.
So we'll do the Zygon Incursion.
Yeah.
And then the Zygon Diversion.
Yeah. Sure.
This is great. You've reminded me of one of the better Capaldi stories, and I'm happy now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's great. So here's what we don't have at the moment. We don't have an episode 5, and we don't have an episode 7. We also don't have titles for episode 2 or 9.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, okay. What could episode 9 be?
I've been trying to think of, I've been trying to avoid just writing down, Lost in Space, or,
Yeah, that's a bit too...
We could just call it Adrift.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah, because it's about
it's about the damaged spaceship and trying to fix it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think
I'm penciling that in.
Sure.
And episode 2 is our Eye of Orion episode.
Yeah. Ion Shift. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work.
Oh, I like that. Again, it's fine for now. If we come up with something later, then we can...
Yeah, we can, placeholder.
It's way more important that we figure out our episodes 5 and 7.
Yeah, sure. Um,
Or
Hmm?
we make life easier for ourselves and go, this is an 8-episode season.
we could. I mean, unless. Do you have like any other ideas that you've been sitting on,
I've
or?
always any idea that I have is like sort of ruined by the fact that they're bouncing around randomly and they can't go to Earth too much. Because my one idea that I've always had is to do an episode surrounding the disappearance of Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, I remember. I think you told me about that years ago.
I think I actually wrote a script about it, but can't do it now.
No.
That's another one we'll keep in the pocket for next season when we do this again.
Unless we find out.
If it happens between now and then, yeah.
No. Wacky idea. I'll just throw this out there.
Go ahead.
What if, because Amelia Earhart, she just disappeared. Yeah, no one knows.
I don't know if they eventually found her ship or not, or her plane or not, but I don't think her remains have been found yet. I'll look it up real quick before you continue. Actually, no, keep talking, and I'll cut you off if it turns out that it's not correct anymore.
What if they're not on Earth, but the place where and I know it may not work quite as well with the order we've got, but what if the place she went into was one of the rifts that the Rift Treaders create?
Yeah.
And she just winds up either in some sort of nebulous, rifty space, or in some other location across the universe.
Yeah. That is remarkably similar to the original concept that I had when I first penned this episode years and years ago, and it actually fits pretty well. Just checking now. Just tell me if they found the plane or not. Search efforts. I don't think they found the plane. I think the current theory is that she crashed in the ocean and sank, which would make sense. But yeah, I don't think they've found her yet. No, haven't done anything. No plane, no body, no crime. Yeah, we could easily do they find Amelia Earhart on an alien world.
Yeah, lost somewhere, and maybe she's trying to learn how to survive. I suppose the only, it probably wouldn't be too much of a problem because it's only the one episode, but you'd have to sort of be mindful, I think, of the dynamics of all the characters. To make sure one isn't overshadowing the other, because this is one of these classic, oh, hello, famous historical person, let's learn about your life sort of episodes.
I don't mind those as much, but like...
I just mean like it can be difficult sort of to juggle.
Yeah.
Too many talking heads sort of a deal. Anyway, though, yeah, that could work. Because if it's not, as you said, as long as it's not on Earth, because that's too convenient.
Yeah.
But if she's somewhere,
and she would speak English, so we could easily explain that away with the TARDIS translation matrix. I like the idea that she landed on this like remote planet, and she sort of after like getting her bearings and like sort of she obviously doesn't quite understand what happened to her because she wouldn't. She's from 1937. But I think it would be great if she instinctively started like exploring and like charting her new environment.
Yeah, but that will make sense though. Yeah, it's totally fitting with, being a go-getting explorer that she is. Presumably.
Yeah, and maybe she encountered like a primitive alien race, like sort of at like caveman levels of technology and development. Yeah. And they sort of start to kind of like mythologize her and like
Yeah, that could work.
So I think I like the idea that the impetus for this story is like, uh, well, actually, that would work if they had the TARDIS. If they had the TARDIS, I would say they arrive on this alien world and then like they realize that all of the religious like shrines and temples like that, they have like their like the image of like a human, and it's like, well, hang on, these people don't look human. What the hell is this? So they go back in time to try and figure out how this all started, and then it's like, oh, we found Amelia Earhart. But also, this could lead to a really great conflict, actually, because, like, if this was any other adventure, the TARDIS crew would just go, well, come in the TARDIS with us, Amelia, we'll get you home. But they don't have the TARDIS anymore. So Amelia would be like, oh, great, people who understand me, like, you're here to save me, right? And they would have to not only tread through the barrier of, actually, you're not even on Earth, but also then go, actually, we have no way to get you home reliably. That's a really great conflict, actually. I like that for episode 3. I've shifted it so that the Zygon two-parter is episode 4 and 5. That way we don't have Amelia Earhart and Arthur Conan Doyle right next to each other.
Yes, yep, that's fine. And it's also one of those things where, I mean, I don't know if I'd say there's something like comedic about it, but it's not as like super serious as some of the other episodes get later on, so it's probably better to have it earlier.
And actually, this is really handy because this is right after Ion Shift, where we might have established rifts having. Actually, that can be the conflict of Ion Shift, is that there's rifts forming everywhere, and they don't know what's causing it. So then when Amelia's like, oh, I traveled through this weird thing, there was like a tear in the sky, and they could be like, you mean like a rift? Having like just seen them, it's like, okay, so this is our setup for the season arc, as well as the TARDIS blowing up. Lands on a primitive planet.
And the bracelet presumably just takes the companions there.
Yeah. This was their first jump after the TARDIS is destroyed. They land on this planet because this way we can have an adventure where the characters speak English before we get to Astropolis, and the TARDIS translation matrix becomes a big deal. Because presumably this primitive race don't have any language yet; they just speak in like grunts or
maybe some early form, like really basic early forms of writing or something like that, or images or something. Yeah, that could work. I wonder if even you could do a kind of subversion where they arrive on this planet and the first thing they find is Amelia Earhart's crashed airplane. It's like, what are we doing back on Earth?
That's great. Yeah. That's actually a very similar setup as the Found World, where it's like we think it's the opposite actually, where it's like, well, we think we're apparently on Earth, but in this year, but there's dinosaurs, and this one is like, well, this is telling us we're on an alien world, but this is a human plane.
I wonder if even the local inhabitants, they could make like almost like a shrine or something, or like a monument out of the plane. Like it's something where maybe like trees or something have grown around it, and maybe one of the big conflicts at the beginning is the locals find the companions and like, what are you doing on our sacred grounds? Get the hell off before we kill you, or something.
It's like it's their Stonehenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I really like this concept. That's really good. What do we call this episode? The Aviator?
Nah, there's a movie, and I think, that's a bit. It's also, I don't know. Maybe the last flight of something. I don't know.
Actually, like the last flight of Amelia Earhart. That works.
Yeah, no, that would be fun, because it's like, and again, it's also divergent. It's like, are we gonna go back in time and see, like, her, learning to fly, and no, it's just, we're on Alien World, and which might be kind of fun.
So we have one episode left for this season of 10. It's probably gonna end up being another like standalone kind of let's have a fun sci-fi romp kind of episode. It's in between the Found World and the Invasion from Earth.
I think Oh yeah, because it's number 7. Yeah, I think maybe because I think a good thing with this season is like if it does get progressively more serious, so maybe a little bit of seriousness near the end. But I think if we want it to be basic sort of sci-fi romp, I think that could work quite well.
Well, I say sci-fi romp in the sense that like it doesn't have to be intrinsically tied to the series arc.
Oh yeah, like
I do imagine it, just I do imagine it being a little darker than the stuff early season.
Sure.
We could potentially include stuff disappearing through rifts if we want to tie it in that way, like as another little sprinkling of rifts are important, guys. Remember that.
I know Sam wanted this idea of the fan world to be that, it's a lost world, that's why the dinosaurs are there in 1925. Could we work some sort of rift thing in there where the real reason they're there is because there's rifts appearing and they're just coming through, or do you think that would kind of defeat the purpose?
I think it could be good that if the TARDIS crew initially assumed that they're coming through rifts, but it's actually the time drive on a crashed spaceship kind of thing. That's a nice subversion I think we can do. So that way it's like, they just happened upon another. Well, actually, it wouldn't be that coincidence. No, they would have. Never mind. I like Sam's pitch. I don't think we need to touch that.
Yeah.
As much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense because there's already a reason why the dinosaurs have sort of there, like time bleeding through. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Well,
because I think also the fact that it is a ship is intrinsically tied to the way Sam pitches the ending of the story as well. Because I think with that, if we change that, quite a bit changes where it's not this like Percy and Jack sacrifice, which explains why they got lost. It's that's a bit difficult if it's a magic rift that appeared.
Yeah, sure.
But episode 7 we can absolutely make about something happens because the rift treaders left a rift open and stuff's coming through.
Sure. We could, if they're already on Earth, could they go to another time on Earth? Because I know we said, we don't want to introduce that too early on because it's too convenient because of the bracelet. But could this be a way? Because it's like, yes, there's a rift in time and space, but because they're kind of like close together, like
we could.
It's already on Earth.
Because we could have it be like where because they're on Earth, the bracelet. Because I assume that the bracelet would in some way be responding to rifts because like that's what it does, and it's like it was maybe because it has been around. All the rifts on Ion Shift, it picked up that energy, and it's like, okay, it's taking us to places where rifts are more populous, or they're showing up a bit more. It could be that it's like, okay, because we're already on Earth, it's taking us to a rift that has appeared on Earth as well. That's an easy enough explanation that we can absolutely have another Earth story here.
Yeah.
Which, in turn, would set up the next episode, which is the villains are people from Earth. It would be nice to have an Earth story right before
the invasion
from Earth. And what I think would be cool here, we got to have a classic Doctor Who story that takes an element of modern society and makes it scary. Because we've seen it so much. Clocks, statues, shadows, that kind of stuff. Like if we can figure out something to turn into, or we can make this a classic Doctor Who story of let's take a creature from mythology and turn it into an alien.
I think I'm more inclined to do the first. I mean, maybe we can combine them, but I'm more inclined to do the first. We could even make them. They're not. It's not really a two-parter thing, but it could be like the invasion of Earth, and the audience would be thinking, well, yeah, that seems like a really generic Doctor Who title. What the hell's going on there? But maybe we could do something subversive with that. And then that could lead to the invasion from Earth. And it's like, what are we doing? Anyway, that's a title idea. But
could be. It depends what the content of episode 7 ends up being.
Yeah. In terms of, like, a problem with modern society. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, it's
I don't
difficult
know.
because they've already done all the obvious ones. Like,
Yeah, maybe something to do with the internet and its pervasive influence, but that seems a bit boomery.
it's also been done already.
Has it? Oh, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Series 7, The Bells of St. John, already did.
Right.
Invasion through the internet and all that stuff.
Mm.
It didn't do it well, but
It did it, so fair enough.
It's been done already.
Okay.
Oh god, like I don't even know what there is because again, like I said, they've already done all the obvious ones.
Well, that was actually going to be one of the things I was going to mention when I was writing and coming up with my ideas. Having done this, I now, whatever my criticisms towards Doctor Who writers are, I actually now have kind of more of a respect for writing with Doctor Who, because the thing with Doctor Who is its best quality is also kind of its most difficult quality, which is that you can do, basically anything. Like, not literally anything, but you can do things you normally wouldn't be able to do with TV shows. And we've seen this happen again and again. I mean, the Chase, for example, that's got batshit turns in plot that certainly in the 60s I can't imagine you could get away with anywhere outside of, the Twilight Zone, for example. But that's the problem, because it's because people can do almost anything, and the history of it is so long. People have indeed done almost anything,
exactly,
almost everything.
I
Yeah.
just had a thought.
Sure.
And I know we're talking about getting darker, and on the face of it, it's not going to sound that way. But you got to hear me out.
Yeah, sure.
I recently heard that that there have been genuine designs made for a working. Hang on, let me double check this and make sure it wasn't a joke that I heard somewhere. Nope, 100% this is happening. So a tech designer has created, well, not built, but designed a virtual reality headset for gaming, where if your character dies in the game, it kills you in real life.
Jesus.
I know, and it's obviously just a fake design that no one's going to build. Why would they ever build that?
But, like, the fact that it's possible.
Yeah, and the fact that, well, it's clearly playing on the Matrix, where it's like if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life. Well, that's like an easy avenue for a Doctor Who story, right? Like, Unit calls the Doctor, and it's like, there have been several cases of people dying in their homes, and they've all been wearing this virtual reality headset. And it's like, okay, so something's happening where when they die in the game, they die in real life, and they got to explore that.
You could even make it be a kind of commentary on the terrible, like, the influences of big tech companies and their massive, outreach through, like, multimedia and social media and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great social commentary you can do with that.
Yeah.
So the only problem I have with that as an idea is it doesn't involve rifts in any way, which blows a hole in the "this is why they're back on Earth" thing. But we can always explain it away by having it be like, in between episode 6 and 7, they did several jumps, and they didn't really get anywhere, and now they're back on Earth, and it's like, oh, okay, we're here, and then
I just came up with a wacky idea, and I'm not sure how it would really work, but I'll float it anyway.
Sure, go ahead.
What if they arrive in some world, and it's a weird version of reality, and the Doctor's like, once again, my Time Lord senses are tingling. This doesn't feel right. And then it turns out we're in a simulation, and they're in this video game. And then they have to figure out, okay, how do we get out of this?
I don't know how that would make sense with the
again with the rifts. I'm not sure how it would make sense either, unless we did something where.
And also, they've already done "We're in a Simulation" in Doctor Who as well. That's been done.
Of course it has.
Series 10, Episode 6, Extremis, I think, is what it's called. But yeah, it's been done. I think we can do the VR headset idea, though. I think
yeah,
that could easily be a unit story as well, where it's like they arrive on Earth, and the Doctor instantly gets a message on their psychic paper where it's like, unit's in trouble, help us out. And then they get to unit, and Kate Lethbridge Stewart is there, and she's like, I've been trying to contact the TARDIS. Where the hell have you been? And then the Doctor has to have that moment of, well, the TARDIS got destroyed, and Kate goes, oh, damn. Well, regardless, you're here now.
I only got to see it once.
Yeah, I saw it once. What do you think about this idea, though? Do you think it would work in Doctor Who, or do you think it's a bit too
of wacky headset thing? I think it would work.
Yeah,
and
I imagine it being this some kind of like it's either the corporation that makes it has like nefarious intentions, or it's like there are these like microscopic creatures that have gotten into the headset during the manufacturing process, and they are like influencing the people like to like have like true experiences of what they're seeing. So when their character dies, it triggers like a shift, like a pure burst of like imaginative stress that activates. I don't know.
Well, that could work because because if you've had it could basically like the principle of how this thing works is kind of similar to like an actual hallucination.
Yeah.
I mean, like I have hallucinated before, and one of the big problems with it is it's not just a situation where it's like, oh well, this is clearly nutty and not real, I don't have to believe this, and like your brain just sort of adjusts to it. You kind of it's almost like it's forcing you to believe it. So if you are in a position where you've got these weird nanotechnology things affecting your brain, if they convince you that you're dead, like you will actually die.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or you'll be stuck in this, you'll be stuck in this sort of weird Matrix land, and then like it kills you in the end or something like that.
Yeah.
So that could certainly work, and I do like it because it's one of the things where nowadays, especially, I don't know if I'd say it's unique to Doctor Who. I mean, certainly this sounds like a Black Mirror episode, for example. But the nature of Doctor Who as a show, it's a show where you could get away with this concept pretty easily.
Yeah,
so if
I
you're
agree.
going to do it with any show, it would be this one.
And making it like these nanobots or like creatures from another world that are like microscopic and infect the hardware itself. That is the sci-fi bent or like turn that makes it more of a Doctor Who thing, as opposed to just like and it's the evil corporation that are trying to profit off the deaths of their customer base. Yeah. Which is, or even
that's also,
it's even more than just rogue technology as well, just being purely the cause, because that's Black Mirror. Yeah. That's what Black Mirror would be.
Yeah, that's true. The whole evil corporation. I mean, that's also been done in Doctor Who a lot.
It has, yeah.
Pretty good effect. But yeah, the one thing I will say is I think we want to have something, and this is why kind of it's an evil invading alien thing works, because I think we'd want it to thematically tie in with the invasion from Earth. Because
I don't know if we have to go that far. I think purely being around a lot of humans in the previous episode before they become the villain, I think that's enough.
Yeah, like showing like showing what the Doctor and the companions have to lose, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. And also just the immediate reminder of the fact that, the humans that are invading aren't just, mindless killing machines. They actually have lives, and having the previous story be on Earth, especially being around UNIT, which is a military institution.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I think that would be enough. It's either that, or we make the microscopic organisms affecting the tech, we make that be like on purpose as part of that species' invasion, or being sent through a rift by like a species, or being sent down to Earth by a species to invade the planet, as opposed to just being they happened they found their way to Earth by accident, and this is just what that species does, and they're not like, there's no like, it's like the nanogenes in Empty Child. Like that's not what they were designed for, but it's what they're doing, and nevertheless, like it's causing all these problems. The other issue is like
I'm
there needs to be. I think I prefer the idea that these organisms or nanobots were sent by a species, because that means that the solution to the problem isn't just, oh, we'll stop selling that specific piece of tech then. Like, you know, like
it's got
it's got to be
deeper.
part of a larger plot, which I think is it helps if that is an invasion. So I think you're right. These
I wonder if you could even do like a kind of subversion where we think it's evil corporations, like, oh, that's what happens, humanity, yeah, we're all terrible, and we're letting evil corporations run amok. I mean, that's true.
Yes.
But maybe it could be a situation where we think it's evil corporation, but it's like, no, we're not actually intending these horrible things to happen. And it's these sort of invading force. Having said that, you'd have to be very careful not to do a
kablam?
Not to pull a kablam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you got to make the
it's like, yeah, it's not the evil corporation's fault.
Yeah,
it's just it's the evil invading force.
Well,
yeah,
I think
you would
what you
got to
do here is like you got to have it be a case of where it's like the person in charge of the tech corporation is working with the alien race because they've been promised.
Yeah, the collusion. I'd wondered whether you wanted to just do the element, because I know that's been done a lot in Doctor Who.
It has, but for this idea, I think it works. It works on two levels here. It works to make it an invasion story, which we kind of want, and it also works to lead the audience down the path of it's an evil corporation that's doing it. It's only to then throw in the third act twist of actually it's part of an alien invasion. I think it works in this.
Yeah.
Like the reason I don't like it is in other stories is because it's been like when the human collaborates with the aliens invaders. Like I haven't enjoyed that in some stories, but in other stories it works. And I think I don't know what the defining thing is that makes it work for some stories and not others, but I think because it facilitates the third act twist of the aliens and the alien invasion, I think it works here.
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to leave it at that. Like, I don't think we need to define what that species is. It can just be like a new race that we don't have to establish too much of. Yeah. We could even make it
cybernetic.
We could even make it the same species from the Power of Three that sent the cubes. Because that got teased that it was going to become important later on, and never did.
I had this one idea, like, because we're talking about human collusion and you know, nano robots. I'm honestly just thinking of the Cybermen when I hear about this.
That's true.
I don't know. Yeah, like you remind me with the Cybermen episodes that Neil Gaiman wrote. Was the idea is that the Cybermats were like tiny? They became microscopic little things.
Not microscopic. They became like the size of like termites.
Okay, right. I wonder.
But I mean, that's not a bad idea actually. Like you have the Cybermats or Cybermice become like incredibly small and infect the hardware, kill the people wearing the headsets, but then also like they can't get the headsets off like physically, and then when the time comes, like the headset it's in the shape of the classic Cyberman like headwear where it's like over the years and stuff like that, and then it begins like to convert the victims, and then it creates a Cyberman army.
That could work. Yeah, maybe it could be like and the way the headset looks, it's like really, really vaguely reminiscent of the Cybermen, but we obviously don't want to reveal that too early, so the audience is like, oh, that's an interesting design. I wonder where I've seen that, and then
but like also like I think it would be easier to hide because like a lot of VR headsets kind of have that shape in general. Like they've got like the big ears things and like the connecting piece over the top of the head.
Yeah.
I think does that just work?
It could honestly, and it does. It like the idea of like, you know, people colluding with the Cybermen, that's, you know, been done before.
Well, yeah, but it also makes it a bit less of like it also kind of subverts that thing, because what if like the head of this tech company is already like partially converted into a Cyberman, and like is like, you know, kind of is able to hide it a bit, like as a affectations of like maybe they wear a hat or something, and they just like they play it off as like, I'm just eccentric like that, but actually it's hiding the fact that I've been partially converted and I'm working for the Cybermen because I'm one of them now.
Mm-hmm. That could work.
Yeah, like I was initially like
Hmm.
hesitant about bringing the Cybermen into this, but like it works.
It does fit.
It fits so well.
Fitting with technology, and it's a new way. Maybe like justification, like the reason why they're using this specific piece of tech. It's like the Cybermen are like, yes, we will engineer cybermats on a microscopic level to go and infiltrate the human brain
Yeah.
and sort of assimilate them with the help of their own technology. And then so yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe it's like maybe it can be almost like a chronic illness or something. Like if you use this headset, the more you use it, the more cybernetic your brain becomes, so that people become really weird and kind of affectless, and then by the time that they die or get converted into Cybermen, they won't care anymore because
Yeah, it's actually not a bad idea.
In their brain,
it also could be a thing of like like the longer they wear the headset, the more compelled they are to keep it on.
Yeah,
because it is like slowly rewriting their brain, and so it gets to the point where they die in game, or even like it gets to the point where it's like even if they don't die in game and not using the headset for that purpose, like it gets to the point where it's converted so much of their brain that like when the Cybermen trigger the conversion process of all the victims, like it just converts the living ones as well, and they've become emotionless. Like that's like on two fronts, right? It either converts the dead or it converts the ones that have already like gone through that process by wearing the headset enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder if you could even call it the episode. You could call it like delete or assimilate.
I was gonna call it cyberspace.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Because that wouldn't instinctively it wouldn't immediately communicate that it is a Cyberman episode, but simply because it is about like virtual reality and stuff like that.
Yeah, but then by the end it's like, oh, cyberspace. Yeah, now that makes sense. The
more I like this Cyberman idea, the more I think about it. Actually, it's a really good concept.
It ties in, I think, pretty well. And again, it also helps with the following episode about the invasion from Earth. Again, it's showing what the Doctor and the companions have to lose, and humans losing their humanity. But then we realize in the next episode, well, how much humanity did they have left? Or, more accurately, is humanity even a great quality to have? Because humans, they don't seem to be terribly great. They're colluders and they're invaders, so...
yeah. So that's all 10 episodes that we planned out. I'm gonna read through, like, I'm not reading everything, but I'm gonna quickly summarize the season that we've got, because I really like it at this point. So,
Same.
Episode 1, The Present, it's the first story about... I'm just going to call her the 17th Doctor, Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Sure.
So she lands on Earth, goes a bit loopy in the public. I really like... Actually, that's a really good idea. Like, the Doctor exits the TARDIS, she's in like a populated area, like maybe in a mall or something, and she's going through post-regenerative madness, like, in public. Like, she's just sort of, like, approaching random members of the public and going, like, what's my face? What do I look like? And stuff like that. But then eventually she collapses and Jo finds her. Jo takes her home. We have the Grant siblings, Jen and Zach. But also there's a story about some space junk that's landed and is producing this aura that's making everyone act violent and aggressive and angry. They're eventually able to stop that, and the Grant siblings are like, hey, can we come with you on the TARDIS? We want to see what it's like. Jo's told us so many stories. Our mum's told us so many stories. And off they go. Episode 2, Ion Shift. They decide they need to de-stress, so the Doctor decides, hey, what's a good first jaunt on the TARDIS? It's the Eye of Orion, a place that emits positive aura, and lands there and goes, something's wrong. And there's also this other person on the planet called Trax, who is also investigating what's going on, but they both suspect each other. As it turns out, something's wrong with the ions, and it's because there's the presence of these rifts that are appearing everywhere, and there's stuff coming through the rifts, and they got to send them back, which I just decided was the conflict of the episode because we never decided what it was. They send everything back through the rifts, and then they discover the TARDIS has been destroyed. Episode 3, the Doctor's reeling because the TARDIS has been destroyed, and Trax is like, "Well, you guys can come with me if you want to go. Like, if you want to find a way to get it back, or just investigate what happened, or whatever." And they jump randomly using Trax's time travel bracelet, which isn't a vortex manipulator, or maybe it is, I don't know yet, and they discover the ruins of Amelia Earhart's ship on a alien world. Turns out she traveled through one of these rifts and crashed there. The inhabitants immediately begin to revere her as a god, and Amelia Earhart, the main premise of this episode is Amelia Earhart's conflict with the crew about being, despite the fact that they're human, not on an alien, not on the same planet, and can't go back, in fact. Episode 4, the Zygon Incursion. They've arrived on Astropolis, which is a gigantic hub planet of all the different alien races that live and mingle together, and they've worked out a perfect ecosystem that, without the TARDIS translation matrix, things are getting a bit weird for the TARDIS crew. They can't understand everyone. As it turns out, there are Zygons infiltrating the society, trying to, on all levels, establish Zygons as the dominant race, as opposed to everyone being equal. At the end of the episode, Trax identifies a Zygon correctly and kills them, but as it turns out, they're actually a good Zygon. Which leads into episode 5, the Zygon Diversion, which is a Zygon versus Zygon civil war, with some Zygons trying to stop the bad Zygons, but also Astropolis is caught in the middle, and they got to save everyone. Episode 6 is The Found World, written by Sam Sweeting. They arrive on Earth in 1925, and there are dinosaurs there. We've got Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and the Fawcetts. As it turns out, there's a crashed ship whose time drive is causing bleeds through the fabric of reality, causing dinosaurs to appear. There's a clash between the TARDIS crew about not being able to interfere with what's going on, and then the Fawcetts sacrifice themselves to stop the time drive bleed from affecting more of the world, which results in the reason that they disappeared. Episode 7 is Cyberspace. They get to Earth eventually, and UNIT summons them to investigate the fact that VR headsets all over the planet are killing people if they die in the game. And also, as a side note, some people who are using the headsets for too long end up getting real brain dead and emotionless, and it's not real good. And it's all based around this one company. As it turns out, this company has been putting cybermites, microscopic cybermites, into these headsets that have been slowly converting people who wear them for too long, or outright killing them, that experience, when they see death, it activates their body to die as well. And then all those people are converted into Cybermen because they can't take the headsets off, and that was the plan all along. Episode 8 is the invasion from Earth. They arrive on an alien world, and it's amazing, but then the Third Great Battle for Human Empire comes along to invade because they need a new home, and they don't care about the original inhabitants, just like all of human civilization ever. The Doctor decides to deal with the fleet, but has conflict with the TARDIS crew, specifically with Zack, about the fact that they are humans, and it's actually not, and that's our race. How dare you do that, Doctor? That eventually ends up destroying the fleet, which causes an even bigger rift. And speaking of rift, that's what the Grants get pulled to at the end of the episode, because we're here for the 2-part finale now. Episode 9 is Adrift. The alien race give a spaceship to the Doctor and Trax to let them get to the home of the Rift Treaders, which they now know where it is, but they encounter an asteroid field and spend months trying to fix the ship and bond in the process. Meanwhile, the Grants are arguing a long time about whether or not the Doctor is actually as good as Joe builds for them up to be. In the final episode, episode 10, the Rift Treaders, the Doctor finally learns what's going on. The Rift Treaders have been opening up rifts to find Artron energy to harvest so they can lock their planet in a time lock and save it from a dying star that it's about to be destroyed by. The Doctor realizes that they can't actually save the planet because it's a fixed point in time, and this causes conflict between her and the Rift Treaders, who decide to be more aggressive as a result. As a result, the Doctor's like, well, fine, I'm actually going to save myself the only way I can, by getting my TARDIS back. And uses the Artron energy that they have to get back to the Eye of Orion and save the TARDIS before it gets blown up, which results in the very paradox that causes the Rift Treaders to get their abilities in the first place. Eventually, the Doctor decides to save the species itself by using the TARDIS, getting them on board and taking them to Atropolis. Unfortunately, the planet is destroyed, which is a bittersweet ending for the Rift Treaders, but they have learned their lesson. And Trax decides to stay behind on Atropolis to help the Rift Treaders acclimatize to the universe itself and mainly to Atropolis. That was very quick and very rushed, and I talked very fast, but I think that's a good season of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied.
At the very least, those premises are good enough that if good writers were to get a hold of them, they would be very good episodes. is there anything else we need to discuss? I think that's it, right? We planned a season of Doctor Who. We
I-
did it to Who's Produce.
I just wanted to add, when you were talking about with the last episode,
Yep.
so the reason, so did we say like why they destroyed the TARDIS? Like that was that's
needed
where
the
they were
Artron
going to get the
energy.
Artron energy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why they got the Artron
to make the
energy.
time lock. Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, we planned to see some Doctor Who. Good for us.
That's amazing. I didn't think that we'd get anything near this level of interest. I'm actually genuinely excited about some of these stories that are never going to see the light of day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they seem cool.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do this again in the future. Who knows? I would like to see what happens to our characters next, especially because we gave ourselves a cliffhanger for the Grants, where something bad might happen to one of them. That was accidental, but whoopsie, I've become attached to these characters that I don't know yet. Well, happy birthday, Doctor Who.
Happy birthday, Doctor Who.
This has been a long discussion, and I figured it might be, but it was fully worth it. I thought this would be a good time, and it was.
Yeah, it was fun.
I, no joke, might write one of these stories just for fun.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool. New collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still on break in between seasons, but we will be back with the proper premiere of season 2 in the final week of December this year, when we review The Christmas Invasion. That's why we're going on break, to make the stories line up with the real world timeline. Imagine that.
Finally.
Yep. So season 2 premiere, late December. Look forward to that. Until then, I'm Alex.
I'm Fitz.
And someone contact the BBC, because I think we're onto a winning formula with some of these stories. I think we should be, honestly, like, Chibnall's writing process, I don't know what it was, but our method of just spitballing ideas in a 2.5 hour period, maybe it produced better stuff? I don't know.
That's one of the weird things, because I said that one of the problems with Doctor Who is that, you know, you need new ideas. How are you going to come up with them? Well, the ironic part is that element of it, in terms of concepts, that was actually one of Chibnall's strengths. He came up with some really good ideas. For example, Master generating into the Doctor. The problem is he just couldn't commit to any of them and didn't know how to explore them properly.
Yeah.
Which is weird and kind of really frustrating, but anyway.
Yeah. We'll never know if these ideas got the same level of treatment. Or will we? No, we definitely won't.
Ooh.
We're not getting hired. It's not happening.
No. Anyway, no, but this was really fun.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we did this.
Goodbye,
Like, it'll be a
audience.
fun little exercise for the audience.